Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Alicia. I originally intended to start doing some more specific and intentional storytelling in my videos in the coming weeks. However, this week that didn't happen. The biggest question that I have around some of this other storytelling is really what visuals go with them and what makes a good video. And I'm still kind of learning my way around that. So this video is going to kind of follow my old form. I don't know how long it's going to be. I have about an hour of footage, which I'm probably going to have to crop down quite a bit. However, I don't know. We'll see. Let's figure it out as we go along, right? So what I wanted to talk about today is my chronic illness, my arthritis, and the journey that I've had for that. The visuals for this entire video are me making a pot of soup. I am currently hosting someone through a work exchange app, and she's been really helpful. She put together a big project for me. She also did a lot of interior painting, some stuff that's been on the list for quite some time, and I'm really grateful for all of her help. Yesterday, she tested positive for COVID, and so we've been isolating in opposite corners of the house and just trying to keep me healthy, and make sure that she's able to rest and get some relaxation as much as possible. So the soup that I'm making here is because soup is my go-to when anybody is sick. If it's me, if it's anyone else, I'm going to make a pot of soup. She is vegetarian, so it had to be vegetarian soup as opposed to something that I would normally do, which would be like a homemade chicken soup, chicken stock kind of situation. So I Googled, the vegetarian equivalent of chicken soup to get ideas about some of those key ingredients to make it healthy and supportive of the immune system and healing and nutritious for someone who has a viral infection. So she's doing okay. She feels a little blah, but not, this isn't like emergency or anything like that. It's just a matter of making sure that we're both being safe and healthy as much as possible. So the soup that I Googled, they came back and the Googles, the Googles said to add miso and seaweed, which were ingredients that I had, but I didn't think about adding. To go heavy in on mushrooms, which was interesting to me. And then also, of course, all of the other lovely fruits and veggies that we think of. And I had a number of these around the house anyway. And I really enjoy cooking with a lot of these. So it was pretty easy for me to just kind of figure this out. After reading the ingredients lists that other people used, I kind of threw this together, and I'm not following a recipe for the rest of this process. I'm basically just chopping and roasting the vegetables. I'm roasting the butternut squash separately with a little bit of water in the bottom of the pan, because that I actually scoop out of the butternut squash and put it directly into the food processor, because that's what makes the thickening of the broth. So you'll see after I've sweated the mushrooms and added the roasted vegetables and some water and some spices, one of the things that I do is use the food processor with the roasted butternut squash, a can of tomato paste, a couple of tablespoons of miso, and that becomes kind of the thing that makes the broth really hold together and nice and thick. The website also said to use nutritional yeast, and so I did pick up some of that. And I do a little taste test in here, and I was like, oh yeah, the nutritional yeast would be amazing. So I added a whole bunch. You'll see me just like unceremoniously dump it in. Generally speaking, for my chicken soup, I use a lot of thyme and a lot of sage. So I went heavy on both of those spices. I didn't do a whole lot of salt at all because the miso and the seaweed had so much salt. But it turned out really good. It was a very tasty soup. It was very nutritious and wholesome feeling. And so, this is an unofficial recipe of a sort, if you like soup. But all of that is to say, after we get past the recipe piece of it, I was diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis in 2017. That was following a flare in which I couldn't even button my own pants. And I called in sick because I was like, if I can't wear pants, I'm not going to work. It only took about 2 weeks to diagnose it once that flare occurred. However, I've had symptoms of this arthritis since as early as 1998. In 1998, I was noticing that I felt fatigued all the time. I was having a really hard time, like just staying awake. I was tested and treated for idiopathic hypersomnia. And I only stopped treatments for that when I discovered that I could control it with food. So by cutting out certain things of my diet, I was able, like especially gluten, I was able to stop feeling quasi-narcoleptic. And so I believe that I used diet and exercise to control my psoriatic arthritis from 1998 until 2017 when it really caught up with me. I also realized like that what I would call a gluten reaction was actually an arthritis flare. Like the description is identical. I was incredibly fatigued. I had joint pain everywhere. I didn't want to get out of bed. Like all of the things that I now associate with my arthritis, I used to associate specifically with the gluten sensitivity. So, one of the things about this arthritis is that since 2017, I've been taking immunosuppression medications. And immunosuppression medications are tricky, especially in the time of COVID, because, but they're tricky even without COVID being a part of it. The only reason why COVID is more tricky is because it lasts longer than a typical cold. And, it has all of those long-term effects, which, can create additional complications with the arthritis. The other reason why it's a little bit hairier is because it is so dang contagious. And so that's kind of part of it as well. But honestly, my reaction to having somebody in the house with COVID is exactly what my reaction would be if somebody in the house had a cold or somebody in the house had a flu. The consequences are basically the same for me, regardless of what the infection source is. I had strep throat earlier this year or late 2023, and the consequences there were the same. So the things that you need to know about the immune suppression medication is that they take about 3 months to kick in. So if you miss too much of this stuff, you could have a 3-month on-ramp of getting back to like levels where it actually works. So you don't want to be off of it for an extended period of time. The other reason why you don't want to be off of the immune suppression medication for an extended period of time is because every time you go off of it, it opens your body up to resisting it, which means that you have to get a different medication, which can take 3 to 6 months to figure out what that new medication is and whether it works or not. So there's a lot of trial and error, and there's like a single head cold, like just a normal common cold, could cause me to have up to a year of pain. So the consequences are kind of dire if I were to catch some sort of viral infection. Now, when I had strep throat, because I got it diagnosed very quickly and was able to get on antibiotics very quickly, I only had to skip about 3 weeks of medications. So I didn't have that 3-month ramp up. It all happened pretty clearly. I didn't have like a major delay in my pain and everything. So it was just kind of a couple crappy 3 weeks while I was on the antibiotics and getting the antibiotics out of my system. And that was okay. So, I mean, that's kind of the best case scenario really is 3 weeks of pain, as opposed to anywhere from 3 months to a year of trial and error and figuring things out. So, I'm taking it very seriously that somebody in my house has COVID. And we're doing everything that we can to prevent me from getting it. I've already tested negative once. I'll be testing negative every couple of days. And then I'm going to eventually get the heck out of Dodge. If I test negative 3 times in a row, I'm going to leave her to house sit and pet sit, and I'm going to go on a much needed little road trip. But which might actually make next week's video strange or different, because I'm going to be on the road during next week's road trip if all of the planets align that allow me to go. So, in terms of the arthritis journey, in 2017, of course, there was the trial and error with trying to find the right medications, the right mix of medications, as well as the fact that I was just flat on my back for about 6 months. I was absolutely exhausted. Showers were required an hour of sleeping after one 10-minute shower. I had just so much pain. I couldn't sleep and I couldn't do anything else. And I was just laying there staring at the ceiling. And it was a pretty miserable time. And one of the things that I kind of am naturally tend to do is want to control everything. And I know that, chronic illness and autoimmune illness aren't things that you can actually control. I'm fully aware of that. However, one of the things that I did do was see a nutritionist, and we went through the whole process of figuring out what dietary elements cause inflammation for me. And then I had a little bit of something I could control. I was able to control the dietary pieces that caused inflammation and like which things were triggers for that inflammation. Other things that I couldn't control, though, were stress and the weather, especially living in Atlanta at the time. The barometric pressure changed all the time. It was always rainy. It was always gross. And even bright, sunny, beautiful summer days often had a 3 p.m. thunderstorm. And so I was kind of at the whim of the weather. The other major trigger was hormones. Again, not something I could control. So what I ended up doing was slowly, very slowly, start controlling some of these things in my life. Figuring out work that wasn't going to stress me out, or a pace of work that wasn't going to stress me out, which, of course, as you know, if you've been following my channel, culminated in my striving to reach the 35-mile-an-hour life and really trying to self-regulate my stress levels. The weather, I literally moved. I moved 1,300 miles across the country to the Southwest, and I live in the high desert for the explicit purpose of being in weather that is more friendly to my joints. And I went back to Atlanta in November, and what I can tell you is that within an hour of landing, my pain went from a 0 to a 4. It hovered around a 4, 5, 6 the entire week I was in Atlanta. And then it went back down to a 0 or 1 the minute I landed in Albuquerque. So it's pretty stark how much the weather helps me. And it's pretty huge that it does help me so much. And it just kind of confirmed that I made the right move for my health and my long-term well-being. Acupuncture does help, and it is one of the self-care things that I do on a regular basis. When I was really in the thick of it in 2017, acupuncture was literally the only time I wasn't in pain. That like 2 or 3 hours after acupuncture was just complete relief and bliss. And then it eventually kind of became more of like a every 3 week sort of like self-care routine that is more maintenance than acute necessity. But to this day, my acupuncturist here in New Mexico is amazing and is super, super good at relieving pain when I need it, which is really helpful. And then, of course, the hormonal fluctuations have been wacky with the menopause and perimenopause. But in the last 6 months or so, since I've gotten further along that journey, and I'm also taking some HRT, that hasn't been as big of a deal either. So that's been a really helpful kind of easing of the triggers of my arthritis and inflammation. All of this is just to kind of give you an idea of the various things that I'm doing to make myself feel and be healthy. But also like why it's such a big deal for people like me to not get sick. I still wear a mask whenever I go out into public, especially like crowded places or busy places like the grocery store. I tend to still wear a mask when I'm in any place that has a lot of people. And then I just avoid a lot of people. I live in the middle of nowhere. It's pretty easy to do that. But I'm also, I was doing a lot of flying. I started grad school in 2017. So I was immune suppressed while flying once a month to California for 3 years. And this is all prior to the COVID outbreak, but flying always, like, how many people do you know always get sick after they fly somewhere? Because you always get sick after you fly somewhere. And so like I had like a little like immunity protocol that I would follow when I flew, and I would amp up my vitamin C, D, and zinc. I do like a ton of extra hand washing, and I also make sure that I'm, using a sinus cleanse. Like I use the saline sinus rinse, and that kind of stuff. And then I also have incorporated masking and air purifiers now since 2020. So I do a lot of things to make sure that I'm staying healthy and safe, and so that I can continue to manage my chronic illness with the immune suppression. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand is that I don't actually get prescription pain relievers for my arthritis. I have this systemic whole body arthritis. It hurts most of the joints in my body, and I don't get prescribed like anything to take the edge off. I can take Tylenol or Advil. Tylenol, like 2 Tylenol once a day is totally fine. I am prescribed one NSAID, which is Celebrex. But it actually doesn't help cut the pain. It just cuts the inflammation a little bit. So I use it right at bedtime because, honestly, the levels of pain that I live at here in New Mexico are in the 0 to 1 to 2 range. Like today, it's really super cloudy and the rain has been coming in and out. And I've been, right around a 2 most of the day. And that's tolerable when you're just kind of like sitting at your computer or just kind of doing small, slow day-to-day kind of stuff. It's less tolerable when you attempt to sleep. When you lay down in bed and all you can feel is how much your joints hurt, and you roll over and your back spasms or whatever, that is far less comfortable and tolerable. So I tend to lean on NSAIDs or other kinds of pain relief when I'm going to bed at night, just to make sure that I get high quality sleep, since sleep is such an important part of staying healthy. So I hope that you enjoy the soup recipe and the making of the soup. I really enjoyed eating the soup, as did the workawayer. She really appreciated it as well. And yeah, I hope that everyone is staying healthy and that you have a good day. And hopefully, I will have something interesting to share next Wednesday on the road trip, because we're going to go on a little bit of an adventure. All right. Much love. Thanks. Bye.